You've seen the success stories online. Millionaires talking about how they built their wealth. Entrepreneurs, investors, people who seem to have figured it out. But there's one thing almost every single one of them mentions that trips up ambitious people like you. They say the first 100,000 is absolutely the hardest part. Not because you don't have the knowledge, not because you don't have the opportunity, but because of the math. Most people think getting rich is linear. They think if it takes 8 years to earn your first $100,000, it'll take 80 years to hit a million. So they do the math in their head, panic, and quit. That assumption kills wealth before it even starts. The truth is far different, and understanding it changes everything. Let's work with real numbers. Say you commit to saving $10,000 a year. That's about $833 a month. Not easy, but achievable if you're disciplined. You invest it, you get a 7% annual return like you'd earn from a balanced stock portfolio. How long until you hit 100,000? 7.8 years. That's 8 years of your life. 8 years of saying no to things. 8 years of watching other people spend freely while you're building. 8 years where your account barely seems to move some months. That's the brick wall most people hit. But here's where people get it wrong. They look at that 8 years and feel defeated before they start. What they don't understand is what's actually happening inside those 8 years. Your money isn't doing the heavy lifting yet. You are. Of that first $100,000, roughly 70 to 75% comes from your direct contributions. Money you saved, money you didn't spend. The remaining 25 to 30%? That's compound growth. Your money working for you. So you're doing about 70% of the work. Your capital is only pulling its weight for 30%. That's why it feels so hard. You're carrying most of the load. Compounding hasn't had enough fuel yet. It's like trying to get a boulder rolling uphill. The first push takes almost everything you've got. People see this ratio and think, why bother? If I'm doing most of the work anyway, maybe I should just enjoy my life. That's the mental battle. It's not the lack of knowledge. It's not the lack of opportunity. It's the psychological torture of feeling like your efforts barely matter because the returns seem invisible. 8 years of slow, steady growth that doesn't feel exponential. Because it isn't. Not yet. Most people quit around year 3 or 4. They've been disciplined for a few years, they're tired of the grind, and their account is only at maybe 30 or 40,000. They look at that progress and think, I could use this money now. A new car, a nicer apartment, a vacation. Then the momentum breaks. So right here, before we go any further, you need to accept something. The first 100,000 is a slog. There's no shortcut, no hack, no Instagram influencer way around it. It's pure discipline, month after month, year after year. Compounding stays quiet while you do the heavy lifting. But here's why you don't quit. Because something seismic changes once you cross that line. The math flips. Compounding stops being your sidekick and becomes the engine. Once you've got 100,000 to work with, everything accelerates. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's business partner for decades, said this. The first 100,000 is a bitch, but you gotta do it. I don't care what you have to do. Find a way to get your hands on 100,000. He meant it. Because he lived it. And he knew what was coming next. The comparison game is brutal too. You see other people making more money than you. People who earn higher salaries, people who take bigger risks, people who got lucky. But you're comparing year 3 of your wealth building to year 0 of theirs. You're doing the invisible work while they're still spending. This is where self-discipline becomes the actual currency of wealth. Not how smart you are, not your job title, not your network. It's your ability to say no to immediate gratification, day after day, year after year, until the numbers start moving on their own. Your save rate matters infinitely more than your investment returns when you're starting. A 7% return doesn't change much if you're only saving $5,000 a year. But saving $15,000 a year? That accelerates your timeline by years. The amount you contribute is the variable you control. Returns will fluctuate. So the first lesson is brutal. The first 100,000 takes about 25% of the total time to reach a million. That means 75% of your wealth journey happens after you hit that mark. Everything before that is the setup, the foundation, the proof that you can actually do this. Now here's where the magic starts. The moment you cross 100,000, the second 100,000 is dramatically faster. With the same savings rate, 10,000 a year at 7% returns, your second 100,000 takes only 5.1 years. That's 35% faster than the first. Why? Because now you've got capital working for you. Your 100,000 is earning 7,000 a year in returns. That's already 70% of your annual savings rate. Your compounding is starting to pull its weight. You're no longer carrying 95% of the load alone. The third 100 takes even less time. The fourth, even faster. By the time you're hitting that final stretch from 600,000 to 1 million, you're earning 40,000 a year just from returns. Your annual savings contributions are almost insignificant. Compounding is doing the real work now. Here's the stunning part. Going from 600,000 to 1 million takes just 6.4 years. But getting your first 100,000 took 7.8 years. You're earning 400,000 in less time than it took to earn the first 100,000. That's the exponential effect kicking in. So let's look at the full math. You need 8 years to reach the first 100,000, but only 32 more years to go from 100,000 to 1 million. 8 years for the foundation, 32 for the empire. That's a fundamentally different game. This is why every single financial advisor, every millionaire, every person who's actually built real wealth says the same thing. Get that first 100,000. Doesn't matter how. Get it. Once you do, everything becomes exponentially easier. The psychological shift at 100,000 is real too. You cross a threshold. You have proof. You've proven to yourself that you can actually be disciplined, that you can actually delay gratification. That wealth building is a real possibility for you, not just something other people do. Before 100,000, you're mostly taking it on faith. You're reading about compound interest. You're hearing from others, but you haven't seen it work in your own account. Not really. You felt the grind. You haven't felt the acceleration. That changes everything about your mindset. By the time you hit 100,000, you've built the habits. You know how to say no. You understand your numbers. You're not spending mindlessly anymore. That behavioral shift is massive. Now you're not starting wealth building. You're already doing it. The hard part is behind you. Here's another thing that changes. At 100,000, you have options. You can take on more risk because you've got a cushion. You can potentially increase your savings rate because you're more confident in your money management. You're not fragile anymore. You're building something real. The journey from 100,000 to your first million becomes something you can actually visualize. You can see the end game. You know the math now. You've lived it. You've felt compound interest work. It's no longer theoretical. It's your reality. And here's what most people miss. The discipline you build to get that first 100,000 is exponentially more valuable than the money itself. You've rewired how you think about money. You've separated happiness from spending. You've connected happiness to freedom and building something lasting. That discipline is what compounds alongside your capital. As your money grows, your habits stay strong. And that combination is unstoppable. This is why people who save their first 100,000 usually end up with far above average wealth by retirement. Habit plus time plus capital equals exponential growth. So what does it actually take to get that first 100,000? The first thing is aggressive savings. Not aggressive investment returns. Aggressive savings. You need to live below your means consistently. This is non-negotiable. You can't compound what you don't have. That might mean an older apartment, a cheaper car, cooking at home instead of eating out. No shopping addiction. No lifestyle inflation. Boring choices made consistently. Warren Buffett still drives a car worth less than most people's watches. That's not poverty. That's discipline. The second thing is making saving automatic. Don't save whatever's left over at the end of the month. Pay yourself first. The day you get paid, money goes straight into investment accounts. Before you see it. Before you can spend it. Automation removes temptation. The third is managing your psychology. You will get tired. You will see friends spending freely. You will wonder if it's worth it. That's when you remember Charlie Munger. You remember that you're 75% through the hard part around year 6. You're so close. That's when mental toughness wins. Find your why. Not just the money. Why do you need freedom? Is it to spend time with family? To build something of your own? To never have a boss again? To travel? The deeper your why, the stronger your why, the easier it is to say no in year 4 when the dopamine of saving wears off. The fourth element is educating yourself. Not for investment tips. For perspective. Read about compound interest. Study people who built wealth. Not to find shortcuts. To remind yourself that the slow path is the real path. Knowledge kills doubt. And don't chase high returns hoping to speed up the timeline. The difference between a 5% and 10% return doesn't matter much in year 1. Your savings rate matters. As your capital grows, returns matter more. But early on, save aggressively. That's your variable. Control what you can control. Here's something else. Track your numbers obsessively. Not to obsess over daily fluctuations, but monthly and yearly. Know exactly where you stand. Seeing progress, even slow progress, is motivating. It makes the abstract concrete. It proves that your discipline is working. Make it visible. Post your goal somewhere you see it. First 50,000 by this date. First 100,000 by this date. When you hit those milestones, celebrate them. Small wins compound. You're not just saving money. You're building a psychological victory streak. The fifth thing is reinvesting your gains. Once you start seeing returns, the temptation to spend them is real. You earn that return. It feels like free money. But reinvesting that return accelerates everything. It's the difference between growing at 7% and compounding at 7%. Huge difference over time. Also, increase your income if you can. That's under your control. Learn a skill. Ask for a promotion. Build a side income stream. If you go from saving $10,000 a year to $20,000 a year, your timeline compresses dramatically. That's you taking control of your destiny. But here's the caveat. Don't trade your life for speed. If you burn out working 3 jobs to save $30,000 a year, but collapse at year 4, you've lost. The goal is sustainable discipline. You need to survive the 8 years mentally and physically. Pace yourself. Your biggest enemy in those 8 years is comparison. Someone else will make money faster. Someone else will take a bigger risk and hit it big. Let them. You're playing a different game. Long-term exponential growth beats short-term luck every single time. But you have to believe that when you're in year 3 and tempted to quit. You also need to manage debt. High-interest debt especially. Credit card debt compounds against you. Student loans you can manage. But consumer debt? That's the enemy of wealth building. Get rid of it before you start, or simultaneously while you're building. Compounding against you is worse than no compound growth at all. Start now. Not when you get a better job. Not when things settle down. Not in January. Now. Today. If you're 25 and you start, you hit 100,000 by 33. 30 years from there, you're hitting multiple millions. If you wait 5 years, you're 30 hitting 100,000 at 38. That 5 years costs you hundreds of thousands in compound growth. Time is the most valuable asset in wealth building. More valuable than intelligence. More valuable than connections. More valuable than luck. The earlier you start, the less discipline you need because time does so much of the work for you. Starting at 20 instead of 25 gives you exponentially more wealth at 50. So here's what I want you to understand. The first 100,000 is hard because it's boring. Because it's invisible. Because you're doing most of the work while compounding sleeps. But you're not just building $100,000. You're building habits. You're building proof. You're building momentum. And once you cross that line, your future changes. The second 100,000 takes 6 years. The third takes 4. The fourth takes 3. The fifth takes 2. You're not just accumulating wealth anymore. You're accelerating toward it. Your money is doing the heavy lifting. You're coasting on the momentum you built. Every single successful person you know or have heard of understands this. They got their first 100,000. That's what separated them from the people who wanted wealth but never got it. Not a better idea. Not luck. Not intelligence. Getting their first 100,000 and refusing to spend it. Your question shouldn't be whether you can build wealth. Of course you can. If you can delay gratification and live below your means, the math works. Your question should be whether you'll start. Whether you'll commit to boring. Whether you'll sacrifice 5 to 8 years of lifestyle now for 30 years of freedom later. Most won't. Most will choose comfort now. And that's fine. That's their choice. But you're not most. You're here because you know something else is possible. You know that the first 100,000 is the hardest. Which means you also know that everything after that is exponentially easier. So here's my challenge for you. Commit. Not to getting rich overnight. Not to some fantasy. Commit to boring. Commit to saving $10,000 a year. That's $833 a month. Commit to 8 years of saying no. Commit to the long view. Your future self will thank you in ways you can't even imagine right now. The money doesn't matter as much as the person you become building it. You become someone who can delay gratification. Someone with discipline. Someone with vision. Someone who can make a plan and execute it for 8 years. That person succeeds at everything. Because you've proven you can do hard things. And then, from that foundation, you don't just build 1,000,000. You build wealth that accelerates. You build freedom. You build options. You build the ability to say no to things that don't serve you. You build a life. That's what the first 100,000 is really about. It's the foundation of everything.